Hello, Somatic Yoga aficionados. I'm Megan, and I'm going to share with you a practice that I've done the last couple of days, and I also do for myself when my back, or when someone's back, as we say, goes out. Because we don't exactly know what we mean when we say that. Is it the sacrum? Is it the lumbar spine? But what I find is really helpful is the somatic movements, being in the somatic space is very mindful, gentle movements. And what happens when our back goes out is that the muscles will freeze. They'll freeze in a tight position. So I call them gripper muscles. And though our instinctual reaction is to lie down and be completely still, and I know in the old days that's what they would tell you to do, go home and not move. What actually happens is that allows those gripper muscles to stay in a contracted state, which is actually adding to the discomfort of whatever may have happened. Even, we don't always know if there's tissue damage, but if we can find some really gentle movement, that will encourage those muscles to relax. So these are a few of the movements I do. A very dear friend of mine was here visiting, and he was meant to get on a plane. So these are a few of the things we did so that he could comfortably sit in that plane seat and get himself back home. If you do have a slow-mo ball, we're going to use that at the end. These, by the way, are also, or any sort of playground ball like this, I do sell them. But these are also great for traveling because you can use them as lumbar support. It's really easy to take the air in and out of these. So contact me if you need one. But we're going to start on our back, because generally what we know is that when our back goes out, we want to be in a reclining position. And know that when these things happen to us, in this case, my friend was sitting in a chair, legs crossed, leaned forward the wrong way, and boom, the instantaneous reaction is to lay on a floor or lay on something flat. That's great. We want to be able to get into that position. If you can do it not on a bed, better, because a bed is a little bit too soft, but a yoga mat, a blanket, something down. The other thing I'll mention is if you're a fortunate person that doesn't have your back go out, think of this not as a heal-all for backs going out, but a preventative, right? It's prehab to keep your back strong and your spine supple. So we're going to come down onto the ground, and what you'll note with backs is that as soon as we extend our legs, it's actually going to draw your lower back up off the floor and arch it. So generally that's not where we want to be. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is bend your knees and place the feet on the floor so that we can feel ourselves from the back side. And the first thing we do is simply some breathing. You're going to take your hands to your lower abdomen. I like to create a triangle shape between the index fingers and the thumbs. It's called Trimurti Mudra. And see if you can direct your breath down into your abdomen. And our feet are in what we call, our feet and our legs are in constructive rest position. So my feet are right about underneath my knees, about as wide as my hips, and I want to let the leg muscles relax. And this gives me an opportunity to feel myself from where are the spaces of pain or discomfort. Are there any areas you can notice that are noticeably tighter in your backside? So is it the whole area is radiating with pain, or is one side more than the other? Because one of the things that I see is that we need to be able to know to fix. So it's this, like, find your flaws to fix them. So being present in the space, and the way that we can be present with a bit more harmony and peace is by breathing into the belly. So your hands are here, and see if you can get your abdomen to rise up as you breathe in, and to gently drop down as you breathe out. So nothing forced, a soft abdominal breath. Think of your abdomen like this ball. If you were filling this ball up on the inhalation, and then just letting it drop. We know that the nervous system is more inclined to relax us if we focus on the exhalation, and even making the exhalation a little bit longer and slower than the inhale. So if you're not ready for movement, cut the video, this is the first thing we do. And if it's more comfortable for you, by the way, with the knees bent, to have a bolster or pillows or something underneath your knees to support them, please do that. Have somebody at home put that underneath you. But just taking control of the breath will create a change in the body, hopefully a positive change of relaxation, particularly breathing to the abdomen. And if you can visualize the back muscles that feel tight, those gripper muscles, as you breathe out, see them relaxing into the ground. Feel the ground supporting them. So let's say we're ready for just a little bit of movement. We start with the pelvic tilting. So sense where your weight is resting, more or less on your sacrum, your triangular bone that's just below the lumbar spine. So we have our 5 vertebrae in the lumbar spine, and then the sacrum. And below that is the tailbone. Feel your tailbone, and as you breathe in, you're going to gently press the tailbone into the floor, so forward into the floor. What will happen is your front hips will lift up and tilt forward, so your pelvis tilts forward and upward, and the low back will arch. But we're going to underdo this because just that little bit of arching in the back is all we need, and then you're going to exhale and just release down, release back to that heavy space. So inhale, tailbone to the floor, so just creating the slightest bit of rocking motion, and exhale, release down. So we don't have to do any grandiose movements. We start from here, and each one of these movements I'm going to give you, at any point you could say stop, that's all I'm ready for, and know that something is better than nothing. So we start with this tilting, and know that if it is the discs, recognize that the discs are in the front of your spine, right? So as we're doing this pelvic tilting, we're actually contracting the back of the spine and creating space for the discs in the front of the spine. And then you're exhaling and releasing to neutral. So creating space in the discs in the front of the spine, if it is that lumbar region, and then just simply releasing back down. I'm going to do a few. Inhaling into your tailbone. So as I feel my belly, the breath is a really important part of this movement. As I feel my belly fill, I'm going to initiate for my breath. I imagine my abdomen is just lifting my low back off the floor just slightly. And then as my belly empties, gravity will take the low back down. Let's do 2 more in that direction. Some other really important things are, you know, it's easy to get mad at yourself for having it happen or be mad at your body. So send love and light, but sending healing energy however you visualize it to your body. Not say, you know, tightness, contraction, gripper muscles, that is anger. I think of that as anger being held in your body. So we don't want to meet anger with anger. We want to meet anger with loving kindness. And then we're going to switch, and you're going to find that maybe one of these movements will feel better than the other. So now I'm going to sense where my tailbone is. At any time, by the way, in between, if you need to gently rock your legs side to side, just these tiny little motions you can, or if you want to bring your legs in towards your body and roll. So you have to figure out in between here what feels right for you. I like to just massage the low back afterwards. But feet are going to come back down. Now sense your tailbone, but then feel your lumbar spine is where that area was arching. Feel the space just above the lumbar spine, so you can think of the back of the bottoms of your ribs. This is right where your diaphragm attaches to your 12th rib. So that middle back. Now as you're inhaling, you're just going to stay in that neutral space. Feel just your belly rise. And as you're exhaling, gently press that 12th vertebrae, those ribs, into the ground. And what you'll notice is when you do that, the tailbone will lift slightly and you'll curl your spine into the floor. So the pelvis is now going to tilt towards me, towards my navel center and down. And then I'm going to inhale and just release. Let the belly fill. Exhale. Navel center draws in slightly, and I'm going to just slightly press the low back into the ground. So what it should create is this sense of more lengthening of the low back on the exhalation, but real soft. Not enough to compress the discs in the front. I'm just softly pressing low back, low ribs into the floor.
The other thing is you might find your leg muscles start to really tighten to push you. We're not trying to lift up. It's not that. It's just this tilt. You're trying to relax the muscles, right? So inhaling and exhaling, pressing low back, low ribs into the floor. And inhale, just release. Take nice slow breaths. If you can, you're going to try to breathe in and out of your nose. If that doesn't work, try breathing in your nose. And you can sigh out your mouth, gently pressing low back and low ribs down. So if both directions feel good for you, so the tilting one way and the other, then we put it together. So now I'm going to inhale, slightly tilt onto my tailbone, lift the belly, arch the back just a little bit, feel the space through the front of the spine. And then exhale, gently press the low ribs and back into the ground, feel my tailbone lift. Being mindful that the legs are staying relaxed, the feet are soft on the earth. And the feet are on the earth as a reminder that you're still grounded. Move my arm out of the way. You could still keep your hands on your belly if you want. One of the simplest movements we do, and again, this may be where you end the video for yourself, just this tilting back and forth. Because what happens when we do something like that, especially a sudden thing like slowing or throwing our back out, is your body is trying to protect you. It freezes muscles. That's what pain is it's protection. And we tell ourselves, oh, I shouldn't move. But the way that we retrain the muscles, it's okay, you don't have to freeze anymore, is to do these gentle movements. Take the muscles through a gentle range of motion. So back and forth. So that's the first movement for that grumpy back. The next one we do is a hip lift. So I'm going to start with my right hip because you can see that. And notice as you're resting, you should feel like more or less like equal weight is in both hips and centered in the center of your spine, so your sacral area. What we're going to do is you're going to feel from the back as you breathe in, you're going to feel yourself roll through your sacrum and weight will go into the left hip. So if I were to have pants with belt loops on, it's like somebody's grabbing my belt loop, and as I breathe in, I'm going to slightly lift this right hip. So I'm lifting it up, and all I'm doing is thinking of rolling through my sacrum on the back and into the left hip, and then I'm dropping it down. Just this slight, so this is a rotation, a really little rotation. I'm lifting the right side of the pelvis and dropping the left side, so the pelvis is rotating. And then I'm dropping back down to neutral on exhale. You don't have to do it to the breath, but you can. Think inhale. And what I want to start to feel on that inhale is I want to feel the muscles in the outer hip here. So I'm not jamming my foot into the ground and lifting my hip all the way up. That's a compensation. What we want to do is use these muscles in the outer hip. If we can find some other muscles and activate those, then the gripper muscles in the backside are more likely to relax because they say, hey, okay, somebody else is supporting us now, right? So getting these outer hip muscles to engage, and maybe even the butt cheek, you might feel it, and then let them release. And just the right hip. The other way, you can visualize this from the back because you can feel yourself rolling onto that left hip and then dropping down. But the other way I sometimes visualize it is from the front. And if you had a drop of water and it was resting on your navel center, as you breathe in and lift that right hip, the drop of water would roll over towards your left hip. And then you breathe out and that drop of water rolls back to the navel center as the right hip lifts. We're going just back and forth ever so slightly. And then relax, come back to the center, just notice any difference. So this one too is going to help you to see maybe one side is more sensitive than the other because we just did the right hip. Now we're going to do the left hip. So you might even place the hand on the left hip. So think inhale, lift that left hip up. I'll turn towards you. So you may find when you switch sides that one side was really easy to control to get to move and the other one just doesn't want to do anything. And that's bringing that balance back. So for me, my left side is usually my lazy side. So I have to focus a little bit more to get these outer hip muscles to engage and lift that hip up. and then that complete release. So that's not unusual. So for me, typically the gripper muscles are on the right side. So when I'm lifting my right side, I'm focusing more on the release. When I'm lifting my left side, I'm focusing more on the engagement, because this is the sleeper side. So I'm engaging left side and then letting it release. So lifting up, slight rotation of the pelvis, and letting it come down. And what we're doing here is what I call the 3 planes of the pelvis. When you walk, and this will help you to walk, right, is this idea that one foot steps forward, one hip comes forward. This is one of the planes, one of the movements that the pelvis does when we walk. But you're doing it really gently. You may find your head wants to respond and just roll. I'm rolling mine to look at you, but it would be rolling even if the camera weren't there. And then if this one feels good for you, then I'd like to take it back and forth. So alternating hips. So I would inhale the left hip up, feel myself weight roll into the right hip, or see that drop of water roll onto the right hip. Exhale, drop the left hip down. Now I'm going to inhale, lift the right hip up, feel that drop of water roll over to the left hip. Exhale, drop it down. So I'm just alternating side to side. And the key here is to underdo. If your hip muscles, if your pelvic muscles were like your hand, we know that we can make a really tight fist, and we know that we can open that hand all the way up. We don't need to go to the end point in either space with these hip muscles. We're just, think of it more like this movement with the hand, right? Not this and this, but just little pulsations of movement with the hips, with these outer hip muscles. So staying in that middle space of movement of the muscles. And one more to either side. So this is the rotation of the pelvis. The first one was what we call anterior posterior tilting back and forth. That's also a movement of walking. And then relax. I'm facing you this way, so we'll do the left hip next in the next one. So you're going to take your right leg long, and this is where it's going to be really important. Your right leg does need to extend, but what I'd like you to do is, if somebody's there to help you, put a block, a bolster, something underneath that right leg. So we don't want to extend it, because what will happen is if I extend my right leg, my back will arch, and it'll cause pain, and it'll get those gripper muscles gripping even more. So when you go to extend the leg, put something underneath it as high as it needs to be, so you're, wherever you start and your back is on the ground, the back side is not changing shape. You're still in contact with the surface of whatever's underneath you, just the same when you begin to extend that leg. All right, so you want to shake that leg out. Imagine that your right leg just went to the beach, it's hanging out, it's on vacation. Let it go, let it be completely relaxed. Now we're going to work with the left hip. So the next one is a hip lift. Another thing that happens when we walk is we have to, one foot comes off the ground, right? The hip lifts it up. So if I had that belt buckle again on my left hip, I'm not lifting it up towards the sky. I'm going to slide the hip towards my armpit. So that's my, I like to do it on exhalation, or you can do it either actually. But you're going to squeeze the hip and then release it. Squeeze hip and release. And this for me is like the magical one. So try them all, see which one works best for you, because I tend to get my pain in one side and not the other. So what you may find is when you're lifting this left hip up, so realize I'm not lifting it off the ground. I shouldn't say lifting, you're sliding it. You're again using these outer hip muscles, and now you're using your side body muscles. Think of your waist. Sliding that waist towards you and then releasing it. So you can feel yourself in two ways. The first thing that's going on is these left side body muscles are contracting as you lift it, but also notice that your right side body muscles are lengthening. And particularly there's two muscles on either side of the sacrum called the quadratus lumborum, and we're getting into those a little bit. So we're tightening that left side. So don't go too far. If that's your crabby side, if you know right away, like that's the side where the muscles are gripping, You might not even want to do it on that side. So this is my loose side. But if you have the gripper muscles on your left side, you might not do this side. You might just do the other side, if that makes sense. So, because I'm gripping those muscles. Although, the caveat to that is that sometimes when the muscles are tight, tightening them even more is where we need to go first in order for them to release. Because that tightening is still movement, right? We're moving them out of that frozen muscle pattern, and then we're releasing them. So nice, easeful movement. If this is feeling really good and you're enjoying the stretch through the right side, you can take your right arm up overhead. Just rest that right arm. So now I'm drawing the hip towards my left side, feeling that contraction through the left side, but I'm also sensing that lengthening through the right side. And then just letting go back to neutral, release to that space of grace. Let your head and neck respond and roll. So super easeful. Remember, what you say to yourself is really important. So if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm overdoing it, this is too much, this lady on this video is crazy, that's different than saying, hey, I can do this really easily. Look at me, I'm moving. And there's sensation, there's gonna be sensation. There might even be on the tip of joyful discomfort. But if there's a tinging pain, you're stopping, right? And you have to feel into your body. The other thing is your breath. Breath is really important here. So if you can breathe smoothly, that's a way of knowing that your nervous system is accepting this movement without trying to protect you. Those muscles are not trying to protect you further. So the breath and what you say to yourself. Is it comfortable? Or are you saying, I'm going to regret this, I'm not going to be able to stand up? That's different than saying, I'm just going to move really easily and accept whatever I can do. And accept what I can't do. So let's do one more on that left side. You also might draw it up and hold for a few breaths. You could do a very slow release coming back to the center. All right, I'm gonna stay on this side so you can see what this movement looks like from both sides. So that was the left leg. When you're ready, you can slide that right leg in. Always remember, in between, I like to lengthen my tailbone. If it feels okay, you can draw knees into your chest, make gentle circles with the back like you're just massaging it. That may or may not work for you. And then this time the left leg is gonna go long for these hip lifts. So left leg lengthening. But remember to put something underneath it. In fact, you might want it this high up in the air. That's up to you. It's just the idea that that left leg is on vacation. All the muscles in the leg are relaxed. We're not tightening that. And that as we extend it, we don't want the back to lift, the back to arch away from the floor, right? It's going to stay relaxed. We want to keep as much of the low back in contact with the floor as possible so it's long and relaxed. Those muscles are encouraged to be long and relaxed. Now my right knee is bent. Foot right about underneath the knee. I can imagine that string on my hip or on my belt buckle, and I'm going to inhale and slide my right hip towards my armpit. I want to feel those outer hip and side body muscles, so your waist muscles, and exhale and release. Inhale and slide. And you can exhale, release. You can actually do your breath either way or not even do it to your breath. I like to do it to my breath only because that shows me that a breath-centered practice that I'm not going into that hypervigilant mode of not breathing, or what we say is that if you feel restraint in your breath, then you're probably straining your body. You're overdoing it, right? So just a really soft, gentle. So this one to me is the magical side because I tend to need to stretch the left side more and to tighten my right side. But again, because we're addressing the two sides of the pelvis and the back separately, one or two of these sides, so meaning left leg long or right leg, will feel better for you perhaps. And you'd only do that one. So I'm drawing up through my right hip and then that slow release. If you're enjoying that feeling of stretching, and watch that you're not tightening the muscles through the left leg, right? It's relaxed, shake it out every now and again. Then you can take your left arm overhead just to create more space in the upper body too. Draw your right hip up. Feel that length through your left side as much as you feel the contraction through the right side. And then let go. Sliding it up. And releasing. Super easy. And again, you can do these in your bed, but sometimes the surface is a little soft, so if there's any way you can get down onto the floor, do it. Or use these as a prehab. Keep yourself in shape so that your back doesn't go out. You just want to think again of that fist. Feel the muscles squeeze and release. We'll do 1 or 2 more for the right hip. And then relaxing completely. So taking the arms back down to our sides. You can slide that left leg back in. Feel free to move yourself in any way that feels good for you. So this is where we're going to go into the ball movements in a moment. But take a second to let yourself rest. And if you don't have a ball, you can do these movements without the ball. I'll show it with and without. I just like the ball because the ball gives more of a floaty feeling. But with my ball, what I'm going to do is take a lot of the air out. What I usually say, especially if my back is aggravated, is I just want enough air to where I can touch my palms together in the center of my palms when I squeeze the ball. So that's it. That's all we need. But I'm going to show you the movements without the ball first. So this is what we call the clock face with the pelvis. Remember when we were doing the tilting? We're going to go back to that. So I'm simply going to go onto my tailbone, feel my back arch. You can do that on your inhale again if you want. And then I'm going to exhale low back, low ribs into the floor. And it's nice to bring this one back in too, right? Go back to that first movement you did. Does it feel different now? Does it feel better? Inhale into the arch. Exhale low back, low ribs into the floor, into the curl. So this is think of your tailbone as your 12 o'clock and your low ribs as your 6 o'clock. And you're going 12 o'clock into the ground and 6 o'clock into the ground, and just finding those 2 spaces. So this is one of the movements we can do. And notice how I'm letting my head just respond. My neck, this is really a tail to tongue movement. We know this one, we've done this one, so that's your pelvic tilting again. But now we want to find, which we did, our 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. So think of your right hip as your 3 o'clock and your left hip as your 9 o'clock. And so you're going to do those lifts you did before. You'll lift up your 3 o'clock and drop it down and lift your 9 o'clock. So these should all be familiar to you, right? We're just noting that where these spaces on like a clock face are on your body. 3 o'clock lifts and drops and 9 o'clock lifts and drops. So I'm going across the clock face from 6 to 9. Excuse me, from 3 to 9. We're all on digital time now, aren't we? I don't know anybody's phone numbers anymore. They're all programmed in. I can't read a clock. My kids can't write in cursive. They don't teach cursive anymore. For some reason, that's the one that bothers me. So just going back and forth. And then come back to your center. Easeful. Remember, less is more, right? It's these minimal movements to heal. We just want to keep movement. So now that I know all 4 of those movements, I'm going to put it together. So I'm going to go 12 o'clock, weight into the tailbone. 3 o'clock, weight into the right hip maybe. 6 o'clock, weight into the center of the back, the low ribs. And 9 o'clock into that left hip. So I'm rolling my pelvis in circles. And what I want to sense is the muscles that are doing this should be, you might feel your abdominal muscles, your outer hips. We're trying to keep that low back relaxed and at ease. So notice when your low back comes down, really, really slow circles. Let your head circle too if it feels good. And I'm going to go ahead and pull in the ball, but no, you're going to go in one direction first if you don't have the ball. And then you can switch and try going 12, 9, 6, and 3. And that's a big part of it, is taking control of those gripper muscles. Remember, they're not trying to hurt you, they're trying to protect you. I tell myself that all the time. You're not trying to cause me pain, I know you are, but you're trying to protect me. And telling them you don't have to do that. So I'm going to take that ball and I'm going to put it, just lift up just enough to put it right underneath my pelvis. So we don't want it in the lumbar arch because that's really painful. It's going to go right across the widest part of your pelvis. So like the edge of your butt will kind of hang off, but that's more importantly is your low back is still long. In fact, it might even still be resting on the ground. But now I can take that ball and just explore. Really gently explore those movements. If you find you're too high, then take some air out. But I'm just rolling in circles, really slow. And notice all those times when your low back is lengthening and just coming back down, letting the floor support it. You can come back into your belly breath. So remember, the belly breathing is going to encourage relaxation. So if you find yourself all of a sudden, chest breathing and like hyperventilating, stop, rest, just fall into the ground. So it's like that's where you reset your GPS. Take the time to figure out where you are, and then where do you want to go? Really slow, breathing to the belly. You can always stop and see where you are. And those nice, easy circles on the ball. All the time trying to keep my leg muscles relaxed. Sometimes your leg muscles will start to grip because they're also going to protect you as the low back relaxes. So keeping those legs relaxed. Just gently rolling around. All right, we're going to stop. And what's really important for you, if you're at home doing this and you actually did do something to your back, you're welcome to stay here, rest, have a loved one put something under your knees and let your legs go long with the support of something under the knees. But if you know you're going to coming out is really important too, because we all just did all this lovely work. So you can choose your right side or your left side. I'm going to roll onto my left side so you can see. Reach that left arm just slightly overhead. And when you roll to one side to come out, because we don't want to sit up quick, right? We want to roll first. Take your right arm across your body, press into your legs. So you're going to do that right hip lift. Press into your legs to roll yourself over very slowly. And you can use your left arm as a pillow. This is a nice place to pause in that fetal curl. I'm going to get on my mat a little more though. And I even like to pause here and just gently rock the body, because again, it's about convincing your nervous system in some ways. It's like we got to trick it back, convince it you're okay. You can make these gentle movements, even if it's just these undulations or this gentle rocking movement with your body, right? Move in ways that feel peaceful, that don't set you off. But it's my whole spine, my whole torso moving, and I'm just gently rocking on the side. You can stay on your side if that's comfortable for your back. When you're ready to get up, then you're going to use your arms, the strength of your arms. So from your side, press that right hand into the ground, slide your left arm in. You can pause there, because this is usually the painful part. Maybe somebody's there to help you, or the difficult part. Otherwise, stay on your back for a while. Take it up. If you can go to a standing position, this is a great time to go take a slow walk around your house, because we've just moved our hips in all of those different directions of walking. We did the anterior and posterior tilting. That was the first one we did. We did the rotation of the hips, so one hip and the other coming forward like when we walk, and we also did the lifting of the hips. So take a slow walk around and then go back and lie down and rest again. I hope that works for you. take it easy, take it slow. Remember to offer yourself loving kindness. It's really easy to get mad at our bodies when what it's trying to do is protect us from further tissue damage. So know that, and hopefully there's not tissue damage, that those muscles gripped before that even happened. They said, hold on, we're not going to let you go that far. That's what they're doing. Thank you. Peace, love, light.